Been a long day, my friends, a really long day. Hey guys, it's Brian back at you with another video where my goal is to help you guys find a rewarding career and to ultimately create a life you're proud of. And today I let you guys in a conversation I had with a recent grad I met at a career event either at UBC or SFU. I hope you guys enjoy it. There's a lot of insight and information in there. She recently reached out to me actually to find out how I got my job after graduation. On top of that, I also described to her what she needs to do now to get her foot in the door and how she can progress moving forward. Be sure to watch the whole thing. The video is very insightful. She reveals a mistake she's made on her resume, and that's probably set her back quite significantly, but she's willing to make some changes and move forward. On top of that, I also give her some tips on how she can reach out to other companies and really set herself apart when she's searching for that entry-level position. So with that said, let me take you to that conversation right now. Two things. You want to know how I got my current position after graduating? Is that what you wanted to know?
Yes.
Okay.
But most importantly, I want to know the very beginning part because because I guess after that it works out once you start.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And before I do, how are you? How are things going on your side since we met, and like what's happened since, that type of thing?
Well, not in the same position when we met last time.
Sure.
I've got more empowered, I feel more empowered and more informed. I didn't know I was doing something very wrong, and I was sending one resume to every position, and my resume was a lab resume. But I was sending a lab resume to all other positions, non-lab positions, because somehow I thought if they can figure it out, if I worked in the lab, I will be able to work in a different environment. So I went to the career advisor. So I went to the career advisor at SFU, and she asked me, how many jobs have you applied for? And I said around 300. And she said, around 300, and you changed your resume, customized it around 300 times. And I said, no, I just sent one resume to 300 jobs.
You applied to 300 jobs with one resume?
Yeah. So I didn't know this. I didn't know all those keywords and customizing. Yeah. So she told me the game, and she told me we printed out job description and everything for one job posting, and she said we are going to work on this only. And once I knew all that, it's like every job posting is a project for a person who's applying, and that's how I knew. Oh, so all these keywords in the role and in the skills, I need to incorporate them to my resume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So well, she said I have learned a hard lesson, but.
Have you looked at my website or looked at my book or anything like that? Yeah, I would definitely recommend. So obviously, you got a lot going on, but I would definitely recommend you download that PDF book I have, because it talks a lot about how to reach out to these companies, what to put on your resume, like all that stuff is on there.
Yes.
So anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I learned that lesson, and then so I customized my resume. I didn't even have the profile thing, and my advisor told me that profile is the main part. That's where you get the attention, and that's where they decide whether they want to read ahead. So then profile, I learned how to put your main highlights of your resume according to their requirements. So I actually customize it according to a job at Natural Factors. So I've applied for that.
Which job?
It was a procurement assistant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but I liked it because, so that's the other thing I am going through, that I most likely will want something outside lab, or at least it will be a combination of lab and office.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see myself in the lab for next like 10 years or 20 years. So at least a combination of both. I don't hate it or anything. I'm still in a lab. I'm volunteering. It's all good, but probably not for the rest of my life.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I find all these office or admin type of positions attractive, but it has to be in a science company where I have background in. Like I don't know anything about finance or anything.
Sure.
So yeah. So that was that lesson. And then the other lesson, I met a person, she is in RA, and she told me, like, I knew you were in RA, but we didn't talk about this at all. So she told me about how if you want something, and so she told me there's not just lab position in a science company, there are so many other departments.
Yeah,
there are sales, and there are QA, RA.
So who was this that you were talking to?
This person?
Yeah.
She is, she currently, she just started her regular RA manager in cardium.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, she told me that, and because I thought the next thing you can have in a science company is sales, marketing and sales, because I thought there are people who work in a lab and there are people who go out to sell what lab is made.
Yeah, so
right?
That's right. So you're thinking that the jobs are quite limited, right? Like
sales,
lab work, that's it.
But she told me, no, it's not just that. There's so many other, like RAQA, she told me about that.
Sure.
And so she said that for RA entry level, there is regulatory affairs associate kind of position. So I found them, and there are none right now. There are positions, but there are upper level, like manager or director. Mm-hmm. So then I told this to my advisor here at SFU, my resume advisor, and she said, well, you can't wait for positions to show up. You have to go out and talk to people who are in our area. You just can't sit and wait that position will come up and I will apply. So yesterday, the RA manager, yesterday was a life sciences medtech event.
Sure.
So I went to that event yesterday, and I met a couple of people from other companies. Most of them were higher positions. Mm-hmm. So when I talked to them, they were like, so my name tag has my name and SFU's, and they said, so you're a professor at SFU? And I was like, no, do I look like professor? Yeah, because they were all like president or manager type of position.
Sure, yeah.
But it was good to know them. But at least they know me now. So anyway, so that's that. I was asking them how they started out, because now they are successful and they're like 20 years in their career. So that would be interesting if you can tell me, because you started out with like from SFU with the same degree I have. So how did you go through this? Because as far as I am concerned, to my knowledge, there is no certification. When I Googled it in BC, and I expected that BCIT should have it, and there is no regulatory affairs certificate in BCIT. And then I talked to this lady, the RA manager, mm-hmm. and she said no, at present there is no certification required. But I've seen on LinkedIn, especially people from Ontario region or Montreal and all that, they have this RA certificate on their LinkedIn.
Right.
But not from BC. So I don't know if it's the provincial rule or I don't know.
Okay, so you're saying that in Ontario there seems to be some sort of certification needed, but in BC, because it's not offered at BCIT, that there isn't anything there. That therefore it's not required.
Okay.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, with regards to that, I think there's a difference there. There is education that you can get, mm-hmm. and you can be certified in regulatory affairs. Mm-hmm. But I think what she is saying is that it's not required by industry, it's not required by a company. Like, you don't have to get that education, but that education is available to you. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So if you wanted to, you could get your RAPS certification elsewhere, not necessarily in BC, but to go to another school in another province and get certified. You could definitely do that. You could do that online as well. And you could put that on your resume. So that's one avenue. But is it required? No. Is it required by a company? No, it's not. So typically you won't find that being an absolute necessity when you're looking for a job. So companies might ask for it. It'd be nice to have it, but some companies, not all of them will require it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so just so you know, there is certification, there is education you can pursue, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that there isn't anything available for BC. Like, you can get RAP certification here or online and put that on your resume and apply for a job here. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. Okay?
Yeah. So currently, I want to know how you started out after a bachelor's. So what did you do?
Okay, so there were a couple things that I would say is a little bit different than in your situation. The first one is I did the co-op program. And when I did the co-op program, I did 2 separate terms. One of the terms was in a lab, so working in a lab and then working in the field. I did 8 months there, and the other one I did a co-op term here in my current company.
I see.
Yeah. See, so that's and that position was a regulatory affairs position. You see, so I got my foot in the door right away before graduation. So I think that's a little bit different than in your situation, right?
Yeah.
So that really put me ahead of the group from a lot of other people. So I will explain like what happened, but I want to give you just some background there, and I think that it might not reflect your scenario exactly. So yeah, I worked as a co-op student in regulatory affairs as an entry-level position, and back then I think Health Canada just released some new regulations for the natural health products side. And at the time, the company didn't have anyone with the scientific background to pursue that type of registration. So there we had to analyze a lot of the clinical data, a lot of the and pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic data, summarize it in reports. You put it all together, write it all up, and then submit it, and then get your approval and address any of the questions from the government. So from that regard, that's what I did, and that was what I did for the first year here, and that really set that foundation. So that really helped me out in getting my foot in the door, right? So, and then at that point, the director at the time really liked my work, and she liked my work ethic, and she wanted to keep me with the company. So I went back to school. I went back to school to finish off my degree, and even during that time, we worked out a deal where I could work part-time for them. So I worked off-site. I continued my report writing for them, and then when I graduated, I had a job waiting for me here, you see. And and then on top of this, so at that point, I worked a little bit longer with that within that department, and she again was happy with my work, and there was an opportunity to take on a leadership role, and I got that role. And then my career kind of just kind of kept going at that point. And I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into detail there, but essentially that initial part was real key. And the other thing I want to talk about though is there's a point where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So there's that point where I went back to school. I was working part-time with my current employer, and I still had the freedom to look around and see what else I wanted to do, what industries I wanted to get into, what roles were out there. And that's when I started doing all my networking. So I had 2 semesters I had to finish in order to graduate. And within those 2 terms, I joined the Leaders of Tomorrow mentorship program, as a mentee. I joined that. I attended all these luncheon events and breakfast like events where they had speakers and a speaker panel there, and you went to all these networking events as well. So it was quite hectic, but that's where I started to figure out who are the big players, who are the key companies, who are people that work there, and started networking with them. So essentially what you're doing now, but that I really honed in on that during that time, right, to figure out what I wanted to do. And in particular, I had one burning question, which is whether I wanted to go into the pharmaceutical / biotech sector here in BC, or to move into the health supplements sector, which that's where I was currently working. And what I found was that during that time, although it was doing fairly well, the biotech and the pharmaceutical field, I was starting to see a trend where people were getting laid off, companies were not passing clinical trials, the funding was drying up, and companies that were doing well were being bought out. And so what I concluded based on that was the biotech and pharmaceutical industry wasn't really as promising as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as stable as I liked it to be. And instead I shifted my focus over to the natural health side, and I looked at that industry, and there you could see, year-to-year growth, you could see a lot of passion, right, and a lot of interest from the consumers in that all-natural, organic, whole foods type of trend. What I would call a trend back then is obviously not a trend now. It's a thing now. It's here to stay. But that was something that I was really trying to figure out. Do I want to go into the natural health product side, or do I want to go into the pharmaceutical side? And I think the academic system really teaches us to stay within the pharmaceutical side, because that's kind of what built the academic system. That's what professors know, so they kind of teach us that. But I think there's all this other stuff out there that we still need to explore on our own, right? And to see what else is out there. And I think you're in that stage, but there was a lot of effort. My day was just literally going to work, going to school, and going to these networking events. and talking to everybody and seeing what education requirements they needed, what they were looking for in either a salesperson or another quality role or anything. And talking to all of those guys, and then making that decision whether I want to stay within the natural health product side or go into the pharmaceutical side. So I think that's kind of where you're at now. So I'm curious to see how that's going, and let me know. But for me, my biggest advantage for my personal journey was the whole co-op, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I really recommend. Now, in your case, you obviously don't have the luxury of co-op. You've already graduated now, so you're kind of like in this boat where you're trying to just get your foot in the door, right?
Right. Okay. So, let me ask you one question. So, let's say if you get through, get the foot in the door to a lab position. So, what are the possibilities of changing departments later on?
So, if you're thinking about getting your foot in the door with a different position, like a lab position, and then just kind of navigating after that, I think that's a great idea, and that's something I definitely recommend. I recommend that to a lot of other people as well, because once you get your foot in the door, now you're seeing postings within that organization before other people outside that company see it, right? You not only can do that, now you're networking with people within the company. You can meet future managers of a department you want to get into. You can talk to them, get to know them, they get to know you, right? Plus you're building experience, and you say now that you don't want to work in a lab, but you don't know where you're going to be in 2 years, and you might actually enjoy it. You might be given a different responsibility in a lab that really sparks something in you. You just don't know that yet. So anything can happen. So keep that in mind too. But yeah, definitely I would not be picky in your situation. And your goal is, and this is why I recommend you read that book I don't mean to keep plugging it, but it's true. Right now, your goal is to figure out what companies you want to work for, what industry you want to get into, and then now the next next goal is not necessarily to apply to those jobs, but to get your foot in the door for an information interview, and to probe those companies to see what positions are available.
Okay.
You see, right? More than, I think that's way more important than what your advisor is saying about putting your profile, your hard skills, your soft skills. Like, that stuff is nothing compared to the real networking side. Contacting these other companies, and to reach out to them personally, and actually sitting in an office directly in front of them. That is more important than where you fit your profile or how you word your resume. Right? In my opinion, that's what I would really focus on. And I think the majority of other students in your, or other recent grads in your shoes, would probably be focusing on the resume, because that's the easiest one to do. That's the nearest thing, that's the easiest, it's within reach. You feel empowered because you can change words on a piece of paper. But the real work is that networking side, and reaching out to these companies and talking to them.
Okay.
Right? Because if you, let's say you have a real company that you want to work for, let's say you want to work with Cardium and you want to work in the regulatory affairs section, but if their regulatory affairs department is only two people deep, with one manager and another assistant, right? What's the point of applying? Like, there's no point. But at least you know that, right? And that's the thing. Like, you got to get in there to find out what their structure is like, what the department structure is like. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of how I would approach that, rather than, it's good to fix up the resume, but I think there's this other level that's untapped, and I think a lot of people don't know about it, or are too scared or shy to pursue that, and that's why I'm encouraging you. I think this is an avenue that you can take advantage of, for sure, easily.
Okay. According to the advisor, she said I should go out and talk to managers of the department, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what you're saying too. So let's say if I apply for a position in that company, is it okay to find the manager online and try to connect with them?
No, what I'm saying, and again, that's why I say read the book.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, don't think about jobs that you're applying for right now. Yeah, you can, but I want to.
Okay.
I'm talking away from that right now. So while you are approaching your positions, you're going to keep looking for available jobs. You're going to apply for them with your resume and cover letter. You're going to tailor them. That's fine. But outside of that, what I think you should be doing is figuring out which companies you want to work for, and what kind of industries you want to work for. And then you're going to reach out to these companies through their company email or their company number or whatever, or the HR department. You are going to set up information interviews. That's it. That's your goal. Okay? You're not going to talk to the manager. That you don't want to go in there to talk to the manager. You just want to get your foot in that door and set up a meeting with someone in HR, and in your email to them, you can also request to talk to a manager of A, B, and C departments if you want to. You can try and see what sticks. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So this has nothing to do with you have applied to a job or a company and you want to talk to that manager. No, you are right now reaching to a company solely to get to know them. Okay, so if I were me, let's say I want to work for Pfizer, right? And I am going to reach out to all the different Pfizer companies out there, email them all, tailor my emails, right? And reach out to them and say, hey, here's my situation. I'm not, and I'm not going to pressure them into giving me a job. I just want to meet them. I would like to set an information interview with an HR department, and perhaps someone who is looking for someone, like myself. Or if there could be someone, or I have interest in regulatory affairs or quality assurance, it'd be great if I could speak to that person. If he or she can spend 15 minutes with the three of us in that room, that'd be great. And I can just at least talk to them about the position, talk to them about the department, how it's being run, what the day is like, that type of thing.
Okay.
That's your number one goal right now. Right? And then once you get that, you it's a low pressure situation for them. where you set an appointment and you actually can go into one of the boardrooms and meet with them. And once you meet with them, then your game plan is different. Once you actually set up the meeting, you have the meeting, you're going to meet with them. There's obviously other strategy of what to say, what to do when you're actually in that meeting, and that's something that, you know, I believe I talk about that in the book as well. You could definitely check that out, or we can always chat before that happens.
Okay.
Right? But do you see what I'm saying? Like, don't think about setting up a meeting with that manager of that position that you're interested in. I'm thinking bigger scale. Just reach out to all the companies from a general perspective, just getting to know them. Right?
Okay.
And then out of that, they'll get to know you when they see you in person, and then it's your goal to make them like you, right? And remember you, and therefore it opens that door to other positions.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I would approach it in your shoes. If I were in your situation, if I just, you know, if I missed that co-op situation, or I just didn't get a job after, that's exactly how I would approach it. Yeah, and in the meantime, of course, you're going to tweak up your resume. In the meantime, of course, you're going to tweak up your cover letter. You're going to still keep applying. You're still going to do all of that in the background.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're going to do this. And you can also do this for companies you've already applied for, because chances are they might not have even seen your resume. Maybe it didn't even go through, right?
Yeah.
So it takes practice. It's going to take practice for you to figure out how you want to reach out to these people, how you want to communicate to them, how to draft up your email to them or your phone call, right? It's going to take practice, and you are going to mess up, right? Or they might not respond in the first time or the third time. Like, it's work for sure, right? But that's your job now, is to break into that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Yeah, but then also,
well, what was their perspective? What was their advice?
So yeah, I think you're being very specific on the people I should talk to. Like, you talk about HR team. Someone else told me that HR are not very, like, they're hiring people, but then if you know the department person, they would be able, because they're the one who's going to decide.
Yes, that's true.
So, yeah. So, okay, I have one more question. So
hold on. Let me interrupt you. Just keep that in mind. The only reason why I'm not saying to reach out to the actual manager of the department explicitly is because it's so obvious you just want a job from them. They're not going to take time away from their day to do that. That's why I'm saying that, because everyone, like I said, that advice I've heard a lot too. You have to talk to the decision maker, the manager, the hiring manager, right? Not the HR manager. And I totally understand why you do that. But I can tell you right now that manager in that department is so busy in their day. The last thing they need is to appease a student that's looking for a job from them. So you really have to dance around that lightly so that you can kind of lure them to you. Do you know what I mean? Does that? That's why. And knowing how busy these guys can be, it's really unlikely that you're going to get a yes from them. It's so obvious what they're looking for. And if I'm busy, right, I'm not in any rush to do that. But if you can make a great impression with the HR people, right, and if you can make it that moment, or if you can present it as a low pressure scenario, like a 5-minute talk, and you can even explicitly say, look, I'm not looking to get hired by you guys. I just want to know how your department's run. That's different.
Okay.
Do you see the difference? Right, and they say, with that in mind, can I speak to the manager of XYZ department? That's the difference versus I need to speak to that XYZ department manager, right?
Yeah.
So I see where they're coming from, and I don't disagree with that thinking, but just how to do it, that's where I'm coming. That's why it's a little bit different. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and is this the same case with recruiters? Because I see some companies have recruiters. Are they good to talk to as well?
You could, but recruiters, they're on their business is filling positions, I think you're just going to you're going to hold them back from that. Recruiters typically look at higher level positions. They're not looking at entry level positions. So while you could try it, I wouldn't put too much faith into it or hope into it, just because they make money on who they place and getting the best candidates. And so entry level positions doesn't really garner them that much money. It's they're brought in because they're looking for someone of a particular niche, right, of a particular expertise, that's sought after. There's a reason why they're going after recruiters. Like, a company is having a hard time finding someone, so they're going for a recruiter, and they're paying that recruiter a lot of money. And for them to take time away from that to speak to an entry level position, or for someone else just getting out of university, you might find some recruiters who are very helpful, but I just feel, generally speaking, that they won't be there for you.
One last question.
Sure.
So I see QA and RA, and some people use that together.
QA-RA, yes.
Yeah. So what's the difference, and do they merge at some point?
QA and RA are very distinct roles. They're very distinct departments. But you would find in some organization structures that RA falls under QA. It depends on the company, but they're also brought together because, let's say RA is essentially all the rules, right? These are the rules you can play by. That's what they're saying. These are the rules, these are the regulations. We got to follow them, right? And so RA and then QA are the guys that ensure that all the systems, processes, the documents follows those rules. The quality assurance guys, they're looking at things from the perspective of releasing product, rejecting product, or ingredients. If there's any deviations, let's say you make a pharmaceutical drug, and then are we testing that properly? Is it failing your specifications? If it's failing, why is that the case, right? So they're looking at all of it from that level, while regulatory is looking at, well, what does the government say we have to meet in terms of the ingredient? How much of an ingredient is allowed in there, right? Is that ingredient even allowed in Canada, right? That type of thing. Or what are the safety ramifications that we have to put on the label, or risk information we have to put on the label? And then how are we supposed to market it? Is it how can we market it legally? Are we being misleading to the consumer?
Okay, because I see a lot of entry-level positions for QA technician, but I don't see any for RA technician.
That's right.
Yeah, so you think if you do a QA tech, you enter that way, and then somehow sometimes down the road, you can switch the role?
Oh, absolutely you can. And that goes for your first question too with the lab. Don't worry about your skill sets. So let's say you're working in the lab and you want to move over to RA. That's okay. You can do that. If you want to move over to product development, that's also an opportunity for you too. It all depends on how you've done your work and how well you've done your work in your current position. So if you worked in the lab, if you're really good at it and people know you and you know the right people, you can move into another department completely unrelated to it.
Okay.
It really depends on you. Right?
Yeah, so I don't really see an entry level for RA, like how QA have QA tech, but I don't see any RA tech, or maybe they're not open yet.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just less opportunity in the sense that RA departments are normally smaller than QA departments, right?
Okay.
Or less turnover too, potentially, right? So that might be an avenue, and also the expertise that is required from an RA person is quite high right off the get-go. While for a QA assistant, it's an easier entry, right? Like you can teach them easier tasks, and they can still perform them and have a very important role under the QA umbrella, that's at an entry level, while for RA you have to learn a lot up front. And so typically they don't want to hire an entry level position, they want someone with experience. Typically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you know, I know we've hired people with no experience and brought them in and grow them, right? And train them that way.
Thank you for taking up precious time during your lunch.
Sure.
Yeah, and I will contact you again.
Yeah, keep me posted. Let me know how things go.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've applied to some other jobs since. So, you know, keep me posted. Are you getting interviews at all or nothing?
Yeah, so I had a phone interview yesterday. That was a second phone interview.
Good. Nice.
And he said that third would be an on-site meet and greet.
Sure.
So, yeah, it went well. So this was an interview after a long time, like almost after more than a month or couple of months. I found that I was very open and frank as compared to some of the other interviews I went at the beginning where I would prepare everything and like a little bit of scripted interview. But this time I was frank. Now I just hope that wasn't a disadvantage, but I think we were getting along well on the phone.
Oh, that's good.
And I like that how I was so genuine and frank about my experiences and qualifications.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare those stories, the little stories of what to tell and how to answer questions.
Right.
But like I felt that I had answers from my real experiences and I could tell them those actual experiences.
Sure. Good.
Yeah. So,
well,
yeah, I think...
Fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
All right,
talk to you
have
later.
a great day.
Okay, you too. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you go, guys. I hope you found that conversation insightful and helpful. I know for me, I found it very interesting to see the types of mistakes that she was making. And on top of that, I hope that you guys can take advantage of the tips I shared today with regards to reaching out to other companies, reaching out to HR departments, etc. Guys, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer in a future video, go to my website, 101mentoring.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.